Specific regulations, I can't answer that question because if I could, I would have run a bill already to do it. Except, I'll throw out the Homegrown Freedom Act, which I mentioned, and a lot of people have made fun of that because that was to allow fowl or poultry in the backyard. Now that's just one example that of a small step. Now that's more having to do with individuals and their individual freedom and their opportunity to prepare for possible difficulties. You look at the economic downturn, which I believe was pretty much created by government, and the length of the recession was created also by government. Federal government did all the wrong things. State government didn't do much better. We did a few good things. So I will be looking for specific regulations. The challenge I have is I tend to be so conservative that I would want to throw out way too many. Not that many shouldn't be thrown out, but the realism is that you have to take one step at a time. So as you choose a regulation that needs to be changed, not only would you want to look at the most onerous of those regulations, but also what is most realistic and is it possible to change, because we have so much to do that we have to choose our battles. For one thing, if you take on the wrong crowd, like homeowners associations, which I was tempted to take on, I was warned, don't touch that one, certainly not in your first term, or you may never get elected again to fight another battle. And so as we look at those regulations, it needs to be done very carefully. I do have some personal examples, and I did try to work on one. I actually had a bill that allowed more freedom. What I was doing prior to my appointment was I was investing in distressed properties. And I bought a sixplex in Phoenix, and I'm a trained electrician but not licensed. I'm a trained plumber but not licensed. I'm a carpenter and a painter and a drywaller. I do it all and do too much because I enjoy working with my hands, but I'm not real fast. Well, the point of my story is I went to the city of Phoenix after I had rewired this triplex. I had a fourplex and triplex on the same property. I rewired the fourplex. I went to APS. They came out and inspected it and said, you did a great job, now you need an inspection by the city of Phoenix. So I went to the city of Phoenix and applied for an inspection. They said in order to have an inspection you needed a permit. Now I have learned early on, don't go to the government for anything unless you have to, because you're opening a can of worms. I'm sorry, but we have so many laws that we all, I'm sure, broke at least one today, unknowingly. So, so I went to the city of Phoenix, and they said in order to get an inspection you need to get a permit. I said okay, and they said that's $150. I says, I whipped out my checkbook. They said, but sorry, we can't sell it to you because you're not a licensed contractor. So I'm working on my own property. I'm doing the work myself, but I'm not allowed to do it because I'm not a licensed contractor. I investigated the law and actually went to my representatives, the two Justins, Justin Olson, Justin Pierce, who I was in their district at the time, and asked them to run a bill to allow me to legally work on my own property. They sent me to Ledge Council, and I spoke to them. I said, you know the way, just go do it. We'll write you a note to the principal. Anyway, long story short, the bill didn't go very far. I reintroduced the bill this session, and the contractors came in and killed the bill quite easily. But if you, the technicality of the law is if you go in and you get a promotion on your job which requires you to transfer to another city, for example, so you know you're going to be moving within a year, and your faucet is dripping, you have two choices. You can go down to Home Depot and spend 99 cents on a washer, put it in yourself if you're so inclined, or you can call a licensed plumber and pay them $100 to come fix that drip. Unfortunately, under state law, you cannot fix it yourself. You must hire a licensed contractor, and the technicality is if you are going to sell or rent your home or business within a year, you must use a licensed contractor. Now, you may think that's a wonderful idea. If you happen to be a licensed contractor, they love that law. However, if you're a person like myself, or I believe thousands of other people who prefer to do their own work, I think it's onerous and should be changed. Can it be changed? Back to what I said. To take on the contractors is a challenging thing. Not quite as hard as taking on the HOAs or the school teachers union, but another one, since it asked for specific examples, I'm an entrepreneur, and back in high school I took auto mechanics. I was a diesel mechanic in an underground copper mine in the 70s, 1,700 feet underground. I found it quite fascinating. Well, from time to time, I'm fascinated by government and their purchasing and their sales of things that we have paid for tax dollars. Whether they got them in Arizona or somewhere else is always a question. So I like to frequent auctions. I've always found it fascinating. So from time to time, I'll pick up a government surplus vehicle, and I'll stick it in my backyard and work on it whenever I want. But I became aware of the state law that you can only sell 3 cars a year without being a licensed dealer. And I've been there. When I lived up in Snowflake, I had an automobile dealer's license and I had a recycling license at the same time, which is not a good idea, 2 different towns. I learned a lot and learned that being a licensed car dealer, a small dealer, is not necessarily, well, I'll say not easy at all to make a profit as a small auto dealer. Anyway, long story short, I presented a bill this last session which to me was my favorite bill, and that was my used car bill, which changed that so you could sell not 3 cars a year, but 6. I see it as a person like myself, or someone who has been a body and paint man, or a mechanic who's worked his whole life as a mechanic. He retires, moves into glorious retirement, and realizes it's not all it was cracked up to be. If you've worked hard your whole life, sometimes you get a little bored and you feel displaced and you don't know what to do with your time. So under the new law, which the governor signed, now we can sell 6 cars a year, and that retired mechanic could go to an auction or wherever, pick up a car, work on it in his garage and clean it all up, make it a great transportation car, and sell it and still be legal and do 6 cars a year, which would almost be a nice little income on the side besides hobbyists and so forth. So there, I've gotten long-winded again, but it came to mind. I didn't read these questions before and the specifics came to my mind. So as I discover those specific items, and there are many, and I went to City of Mesa and got a permit. I am working on a house right now. I bought another project house as soon as the session was over. It's same thing. The vandals have gone in and cut up all the wiring. They'll break open a whole wall to get out 15 cents worth of copper that cost me $100 to replace it. And my biggest challenge is I cannot do that work legally. Yet in the legislature making $24,000 a year, and with the cost of getting reelected, I cannot afford to not do that. And I have found out I'm pretty good at it and I can make pretty good money. So how do I get that permit? And so yes, I will be looking for ways not only of things that can be changed, but as I said, of the realism as of can we get it past, or are we just poking a tiger in the eye? So I apologize again for my long answer.